Out of all of the episodes that I'm hoping with this new podcast that I can do, this one has to be the most important to me personally. Um, it may, to some, seem like a couple of old guys sitting around having a beer on the front porch, just rambling on, and you may find yourself drifting uh, as we drift in the conversation to come. But Steve, my uncle Steve's, most call him Leo, family members, friends, and the neighborhood he lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, know him as Leo. But Steve has one of the best memories uh, that I know of. His almost encyclopedic, dare I say, knowledge of not only the music scene that he discovered in Minneapolis but in Jamestown, North Dakota, as he was growing up and picking up the guitar and his observations and his way of remembering names has always blown my mind. His stories are vast, and every time I sit down with him or in a group or by alone, mano a mano, I always hear a new story. And again, as you know from the intro to my podcast, episode one, um, you'll know that he gave me my first guitar and he began my journey. So when I sat down and made a list of who I'd like to speak with, and he was the number one invite in that list. And without further ado, um, please glean what you can from this conversation and have fun because Steve's a wealth of knowledge, and I was happy to have him on the show and enjoy. So, Steve, thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for joining me in the garage. I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
when it comes to my story about the guitar and my relationship with the guitar and music related to guitar, it all starts with uh, being handed my first guitar. And that was you in Jamestown, North Dakota, 1977. And I kind of told the story in the intro to the podcast. So you, as a guitar player, and I'd like to know, and I've never asked you this before, and I've never heard your story. How did you get turned on to the guitar? Was it a song? Was it a group? Was it watching someone playing? What was your start of your journey?
Boy, I was thinking about that in the last hour, and it's a really pretty rich road. And to clarify to the audience, whoever is listening, I'm not really a professional guitar player. I'm a home noodler, but I've been a home noodler for 60 plus years, probably. For a couple of decades playing A, E, D, A, that kind of stuff. Strumming whenever I was living with somebody that had a guitar. So I gave my first one away.
Well, I have to say, though, being a noodler, there was a moment when you came and visited us in Anchorage, and I still had my first guitar, first electric guitar that I bought out of the Sears catalog, and I was living with Jay and Jeff in my dad's condo. And Jay had a guitar, Jeff had a guitar, and we used to just sit around and noodle, trying to pick stuff up, not knowing how to read music. And you sat down with one of our guitars and played something, and I got so freaking amazed. I'm like, okay, I know Steve's a noodler. I know he's not a professional, but God damn it, what was he just doing right there?
Yeah, I remember that time too. And it was what was the song? One of the tunes has noodling on it. So when you're thinking of Dire Straits, what was their hit back in the 80s?
Sultans of Swing?
Yeah, that was it. I think Jay probably said, it's playing, it's starting up. Oh yeah, hey, here's one for you, Dad. Like, and somebody, shh, you can't play that loud here. Oh yeah, so the journey, back when I was in grade school, so back in like fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, I walked to a Lincoln school from home, and of course, my friend John L., whom I'll probably refer to a lot, lived down the street, a couple doors down. And by 1960 or 61, he got his first guitar and amp and learned how to play guitar in earnest. Also, living behind us, we're on Second Avenue, so on Third Avenue. And for a while, John L. went to a different school.
This is in Jamestown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, grade school kid. And I went to all my whole grade school and high school in Jamestown. Jerry Robko had his hair greased back, had pointy shoes, and all that. And he'd talk about the songs that he just learned. I don't know if he was learning from his uncle or something, but John L. would go to another school, so I'd walk up to Third Avenue and run into Jerry Robko, and he'd walk down the street and say, "Wow, I learned Bulldog today." It's like, "Oh, what's Bulldog?" He was a Carl Perkins kind of guy. Cool. And he was my age. So we were like 10 or 11. And John L. had just picked up a guitar about then. He was probably 11. And so 61. And I know John L. took lessons from Jerry, as Jerry took lessons from somebody else. And they had a band in junior high, and we were too young when they'd play out. My parents wouldn't let me go see them. Because, it's like, who's that crowd that's going out to these small towns out in North Dakota and playing rock and roll? Who knows, probably rock and roll music. Yeah. Right. Even though I've got a picture, I don't know if you've seen this picture of my dad, your grandfather, playing accordion, and his brother Clay playing the guitar.
Clay played guitar, okay.
Yeah. I realized later that when I'd visit my grandparents, I'd walk around their big house up by the Canadian border. And in the closet, there was an acoustic guitar there, and I'd go there and I'd strum it, and it would just reverberate through the house. And I go, ay. So listening to Jerry Robko talk about guitar playing, and I was pretty clueless. And then John L. playing guitar, and then he'd show me what he'd learned. Back in those days, John L. had Chet Atkins records and other stuff. And I remember one time on our way to school, he said, "There's this band from England that's kind of breaking out. And I think maybe they're coming here." So this one would have been 63. So we'd have been 12 then.
Wow.
63, November 63, maybe 13. The Beatles. Oh, wow, the Beatles. Then a couple of weeks later. So actually, that would have been 64. Well, winter 64, fall 63. And in the meantime, so Beatles came. But already, let's see, John L. was bringing his guitar. I'd go over to his place and he'd play stuff. Okay. One of my big regrets in life, I think, if I have any, was it's like being exposed to John L. daily while he played. What the hell was I thinking? Why didn't I go buy a guitar? Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I just thought, well, guitars for magicians, not musicians, magicians. They do magic stuff. And I have no idea what that is. So
why should I do that? Right?
Why would I do that?
Yeah. Can I do that?
Can I didn't even think. It was more like I couldn't do that.
Oh, wow.
Because John L. was good right out of the gate.
Wow.
He was, emulating Chet Atkins and other players that I hadn't heard of, and James Brown, doing R&B stuff when he's 12 and 13. Sometimes he plug it. Huh?
Did he have a musical background that influenced him to pick up the guitar, or?
No, as far as I know, he had no musical background.
Wow. The drive and desire.
I guess, there was a spark in there. I think maybe his dad showed him a guitar. I think he told me the story that he was they were in a Sears stores or something, or a Sears store, or a Montgomery Ward. And he saw this guitar a couple of times, and either he asked his dad for it or his dad said just picked it up for him.
Wow.
And it was a kind of guitar, probably pretty much like the one I gave you. Pretty big, clunky, thick stringed,
Acoustic.
box. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
John L. was acoustic playing in front of you and not yet electrified.
I think I might have missed out on those acoustic years. I think when I first started noticing, or the earliest memory I have, he had an electric guitar. I forget what his first one was, and a Fender amp.
Wow.
And he was playing some tunes. Now, around that time, this is before the Beatles, or about the time the Beatles came out, I was listening to the Ventures and the Beach Boys.
Nice.
And it's like I've always had a thing for that surf, twang, major chord, stuff, big reverb. Yeah, and that to this day, that resonates for me. And John L. could play all that stuff. He knew all the Ventures albums. He knew some country western music. He knew, pretty much everything. He'd haul his amp down to our house, my parents' house, and set up and to show him what he could do. And I'm sure my dad was impressed because he knew about music. And Mom was a piano player, so she was probably impressed. But then it's more like, okay, now you can run along. Mom used to say years later, he'd bring his guitar over and he'd play us some songs, and then he just wouldn't leave. He kept playing.
A rapt audience.
Yeah. Although they're going, I've got dishes to do. All the kids got to get to bed. Oh, like, what do you, maybe it's time to go now.
And of course, you're still sitting there watching the whole time.
Yeah.
That does want to be.
Wow, you can play that song too. I heard that on the radio. He was probably learning all the Buddy Holly songs and all that. By the way, actually, this is a reminder of my listening to music. While, which is probably why I thought I'll never do that. I wasn't thinking that John L. has a guitar. I should get one too. And I've told this story a couple times lately. I'm not sure why, but maybe I've told you. I was at the skating rink. So this might have even predated John L.'s guitar. I was at the skating rink one February day, skating around and freezing, and then go in the warming house and then skate some more.
Dakota.
Yeah, walked across the park and go home, turned on the radio because I was listening to songs. I mean, I really loved whatever pre-Beatle rock and roll songs that they play on our station, or Herb Alpert or whatever. It was pre-Shangri-La's, it was pre-Ventures, it was pre all that. And I heard that Buddy Holly's plane crashed. And it's like, wow. I mean, so they're playing Buddy Holly songs. So, because I knew those songs, several. And that had such an impact. That's been a story that stayed with me my whole life. I kind of remember Stevie Ray Vaughan's helicopter went down in Alpine Valley, in the 90s. Yeah. But I probably heard that a couple of days later. But that had an impact. Of course, he was in Clear Lake, Iowa, on his way to Fargo.
Yeah.
And so there's that closeness of, that proximity. But I was already a Buddy Holly fan.
Yeah. But it's interesting you mentioned that, Steve, because I had a ticket to go see Stevie Ray Vaughan in Texas before he died.
Wow.
And suddenly I had to, and back in that day, you could log into the internet and get a refund. So I had to call on the phone, have him, send the refund in the mail. But that was, it's kind of one of those, when Kennedy was assassinated, or Martin Luther King, or 9/11, it's one of those, and I've always kind of felt this way about guitar players. You remember where you were. I remember last year hearing about Jeff Beck passing. And I think my whole week was just kind of a malaise after that, because we grow this attachment with those creations. They're personal, their personas coming out in their songs. and we feel like we can, we're friends with them. It's a
Yeah.
very personal loss, you know.
There was another one too, thinking of loss and missing opportunities. I'd had to sneak, as some of my friends did. I was in high school, so 66, probably 66. I was probably a junior in high school or sophomore. And, where Jamestown is, where Fargo is, and Detroit Lakes is a little further down. Back in those days, they still had pavilions where big bands used to play.
Okay.
Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, all the big bands across the country playing in these pavilions based around the lake. Well, there's the Detroit Lakes Pavilion, and the Yardbirds played.
Oh, wow.
I knew people that were hopping in the cars and, cutting school in the afternoon and heading to Detroit Lakes.
Wow. Which iteration was it? It was Jeff Beck, I believe, right?
I don't know if the year was 66 or the year was 67 wouldn't matter, and I never found out which.
I think it was because I think Clapton missed it. He dropped out of them just to hit the U.S. and they were getting really poppy, less bluesy for Clapton's taste, and then that's when he shot off and went and joined John Mayall's band.
Man, and they produced some great stuff. I had one John Mayall record in high school.
Yeah.
And that was really good. And now I hear them, and I've got a couple in what I stream. And it's like it goes back, and I think, wow, let's see, who's that? Is that early Fleetwood Mac or something with
Peter Green?
Peter Green. And it's like, no, hell, that's John Mayall, and that's Eric Clapton.
Wow. Yeah.
Those were his best days.
John Mayall. Really, that was just like the epitome of the blues. When I first discovered it, I was looking at the cover going, that's not the Eric Clapton I know. And he's sitting there reading the Beano magazine. And, okay, well, let's give it a shot. Whoa, okay. Because, the Clapton I first discovered was Cream. Well,
right.
And Layla and, way later Clapton. But this was early, raw, more blues-oriented Clapton. It was like, holy crap, yeah.
And have you ever heard the early Fleetwood Mac albums? Peter Green and like Before Then Play On?
Yeah.
Just solid blues.
Amazing guitar player.
Yeah, really was. One of my favorites, I guess, Peter Green and Eric Clapton and all the rest.
Guitar, Steve, when did you make that leap? How did it, was it out of a catalog, at a store? Did someone gift it to you? Or?
Oh, I don't know if it was this way in small towns across the country in the mid 60s, but we had unbelievable bands playing at the Armory, walking distance from home. Flash Tuesday, the Unbelievable Uglies, local talent, local bands. Oh, there's two things. The Walkers, great band. They played all the hit songs. They played them perfect. Lanny Myrie learned how to play guitar in reform school. I mean, that's a classic story.
Cool.
His keyboard player, Donnie Mowry's mother owned Marguerite's Music in Jamestown. They were the biggest retailer of rock and roll equipment in the Midwest in the 60s.
Wow.
Their closest competition was B Sharp in Minneapolis.
Whoa.
360 miles away.
Wow.
They built a rock and roll empire, and everybody came there. John L. taught guitar lessons there.
Oh, wow.
That's where you'd go buy. That's the record store. That's where you go thumb through all the records.
Nice.
That's where local guitar musicians would come down and be playing in the basement. And that's where I saw my first Gibson bass hanging on the wall for a long time.
The SG.
Yeah. That's when I started to think, if I got that bass, I could play bass in one of John L's bands. So I talked my parents into loaning me some money. I bought it. It's $200.
You bought that bass?
Yeah.
Oh man.
That was my first one. Red, short neck bass. Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a great bass.
That nice kind of mahogany kind of red.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, bright red. Let's see, what'd you call it? I'd call it burgundy, candy apple burgundy.
Oh, okay. It's candy apple. Okay.
It was nice. Anyway,
Well, I have to ask, and you didn't know how to play guitar, right?
No.
Isn't it funny how you think bass could be the gateway? Like, well, it's a simpler instrument. I think I can do E,
There's
A.
4 strings, not 6. You play a note at a time.
No more than back then, no more than 4 or 5 notes per song.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
You know.
you know,
But so, and I hadn't had any guitar lessons. I told my parents, if you help me buy that bass, I'll take lessons. And I
wow.
never did. And I'll pay you back. And I did. But then, let's see, turning points there were, well, let's see. All the stuff I learned, John L. showed me how to do. And so we could play together. And then when I was a senior in high school, so this is the spring of 68, winter of 67, we got together with some musicians. There were, let's see, not only were there the Walkers from Jamestown and the Unbelievable Uglies from Park Rapids, Minnesota, I think. And they're still around, they're still playing. And, you know, they're 80. There was the Gremlins. And that was a band with Tim Inkstead, Doug Kruger. Doug Kruger was a folk singer and the singer of the Gremlins. I can't remember all. Rich Dwyer was in it for a while. Steve Runquist was in it for a while. After some people moved on and went to college, John L. became the guitar player, and he was the best guitar player they ever had. Although the other one was good too. Bob Ringstrom on drums. I'm still friends with Bob Ringstrom. He lives up by St. Cloud.
You still in the Gremlins?
No, they broke up in probably 69.
When you say they're still playing as individuals, they're still playing there.
Oh yeah, some are. Oh, Bob Ringstrom has a whole big set. You know, sometimes he'll call. We've talked a couple times FaceTime, and he'll show me his basement. He's got his old drum set and a bunch of stand-up congas and all kinds of other percussion instruments. So he's still doing it.
So you and John L., you got your bass. You're sitting down with him. He's showing you the ropes. Did it ever come to live performances, or?
We won. No, we took second place in talent contest.
What did you play?
Huh?
What'd you play?
Let's see. We had Mike on saxophone. I'll think of his last name later. Saxophone. Bob Ringstrom on drums. John L. on guitar. I played bass. We did a medley. A Paul Butterfield blues with the Blues Project, 2 of their songs. And it was kick-ass. I mean, that was like John L.'s first big outing, public outing.
Okay.
In town. And people were blown away. I mean, he was awesome.
Who got first place?
JB, Frank McLean family. He had the, what was their name? They had a polka band, the Polka Dots.
Oh, cool. Okay.
They were good.
I'm playing a polka tune.
Yeah. A lot of polka tunes. I thought we had it cinched, but no, the Polka Dots beat us. That's okay. I mean, it was North Dakota in 68. What do you expect?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So 68, I mean, you're getting pretty close to when you went to Woodstock, right?
Yeah, it's a year down the road. No idea what was coming. You know, those years from 68, 67, 68 to 75, encapsulates the entirety of my identity or my life, or like becoming me.
Yeah.
And everything happened. So like when I think back now on this happened in 68, this happened in 69, this happened later in 69, this happened in early 70, this happened in mid 70, this happened in late 70. It's like, how did I cram all that stuff in there? But anyway, that's another digression.
Wow.
Regarding music, getting back to music, the environment around Jamestown in those days, and maybe it was the same in every little town, I don't know, Uh, being where Marguerite's music was helped. Having all the local bands helped. After John L., there was a raft of fabulous musicians coming up through the ranks because the whole world was changing. Everybody was learning they could be a musician. Everybody was learning you could start a band. Everybody was touring. Everybody was playing. There's a guy, Don Salting. He's a linguist, a PhD linguist, I think in Indiana or Illinois. Fabulous guitar player. I mean, there are more guitar players and musicians, keyboard players, horn players coming out of Jamestown than I can list. But it was a ripe environment.
I'm beginning to wonder, Steve, when you mentioned that, it's interesting how, when I was in my band in Anchorage playing bass.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. What was the name of your band again?
Hopscotch.
That's right. Yeah.
And the only reason I played bass is because they needed one. And I said, well, sure. I mean, I've been playing guitar or trying to all these years, just two less strings. And it was punk rock, so it was pretty easy. Yeah. But there was a vital music scene in Anchorage and vital in, well, look at the grunge era out of Seattle, right? Vital in Jamestown. I think maybe atmosphere and weather and climate and, annual holding up in your bedroom because going outside sucks. Maybe there's something to be said about Jamestown and the vital music scene there because winters were harsh and long.
Yeah.
And not much else to do in those areas.
That's right.
And out of necessity, if you will, these guys would shed in their bedrooms during winter and just become masters of their craft.
That's a good point, and that's what John L. would do. Like every month, he'd show me new stuff that he's learned, and it's like, wow, you can play that too. And because he wasn't sleeping, he was sitting up late at night studying, playing, putting the needle back on that spot in the record and listening and getting it down and put it back and listen and get it down. That's how you learned how to play guitar back then. And I'll just a nod to other Jamestown musicians, Billy Weber, Scott Talley, Randy Schrank, drummer, has a studio now. They're still playing. I was working in a factory with Bill Weber one time, and we're soldering things together and cutting metal and doing the drilling holes, doing the usual stuff. And finally, he said, you know what, I'm going to quit. I'm going to buy a guitar. I'm going to teach myself how to play guitar. And he did. He said, if I can spend 8 hours drilling holes in sheet metal, I can spend 8 hours studying guitar. Now, you know what, I'm 73, he's 70, probably. And Scott Daly, 70. They're playing, they got a hot band. 25 years ago, Billy Weber was one of the hottest guitar players I'd see.
Wow.
Finger tapping, all that heavy, big hair rock stuff is not my kind of music, but he was good. They're a good band. They've got 2 female singers and keyboardist.
And that's a really good point. I mean, when I'm watching a 3.5-hour movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, I'm thinking that's 3.5 hours that I could be practicing guitar, and like Leisha will be, like once I was on this jag that I really wanted to pick up the saxophone. And and you're probably going through this too with the harmonica. You just started picking up the harmonica. It's like, I'd love to learn a new instrument, but I told Leisha, I'd rather spend my time learning, instead of learning that instrument, being better at the one that I know that I could sit down. You know what I mean? It's just the investment.
Yeah. What I like to do with that is take, what I've learned with guitar, like the notes, the chords, the scales, the theory, all that kind of stuff, and pick it out on a piano and say, okay, if I'm playing, boop, 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 boop on a guitar, whatever, what's that sound like on a keyboard? So, what are the chords? What are the notes? What are the scales? And, I haven't spent a lot of time because you're right. If I'm playing, I'd rather be playing guitar. And that's one of the things. I'm getting some arthritis in my left forearm and wrist, which is interfering with a lot of playing. And I notice when I play the piano, it's worse. It's, I can play the harmonica though. Thanks, Susie. I can play the harmonica without wrecking my wrist.
But harnesses, Steve, that you mount the harmonica on your guitar around your neck, or
I'm gonna get one sometime.
cool.
Because it's like with the piano and guitar, it's like with the harmonica, whatever I'm doing, it's like I'm trying to think, what would I do with the guitar? What do I know about guitar that will, that I can play on this? And I'll try to do a tune or something like that. And I'm not good enough yet to play a song. I'm learning how to hold the darn thing and how to breathe into it. But if I make enough progress, I'd love to be able to strum and play and, Bob Dylan, those type, Bruce Springsteen, all the people that blah, 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 blah.
And you're talking about learning how to hold it. Does it blow your mind that they're not holding it and they're still able to play what they play without putting it up to their mouth? And I mean, that's intense.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for variation on a harmonica and a guitar. There's every kind of guitar style playing. How do you hold it? How do you hold your pick? How do you, what technique do you use?
We'll be right back.
Guitar Garage Talk is brought to you by YourGuitarMechanic.com. Setups, repairs, restrings, and more. Whatever your guitar or bass needs, we can get it done. Offering pickup and delivery service in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area. YourGuitarMechanic.com. Now, back to the program.
There are people that are awesome players that have it on their lap.
Exactly. Or with their feet. I've seen guys that do amazing things with just their feet,
Yeah. I was going to say, what I like are the street musicians. There's one guy that I knew, he was a client of mine back in the day hospital days, and he was a great musician. He's about my age, maybe he's a year or two older. Had a drum, harmonica, and a guitar that he tuned really tight because he could, had big strings and he tuned it high. So he could get a bigger noise out of it. So he'd be drumming with his drum set with his feet, playing his harmonica and playing on the street corner. He was crazy as a loon, but he was really good.
Wow. So when did you make the segue to guitar? You're right now thinking, I'm going to go through life as a bass player. The bass is what I have. I'm attracted to it. I've just won second prize at a talent show playing bass. When did you go, you know what, maybe I should do what Don L's do? If I want to learn the adventures and those cool surf riffs, I need to get a six string. When did that transition happen?
Let's see. Hard saying, early 70s. When I got out of high school and went to started college, I sold my bass. And of course, every guitar you've ever sold, I regret it. I wish I still had it. Yeah. Of course, now it's worth $3,000. It would be, or $2,000 or something. But I sold it. My dad was upset because I sold it for cheap. I gave it away basically to my good friend John Lang, who was a fabulous bass player, and his whole family. In fact, getting back to the Jamestown, I'll digress a little bit, but still be on focus. The Lang family. John Lang played bass with Al Adkins from Maryland, who was a violin player, but a great guitar player. And they had a little band, a three-piece band back in 69, 70. And the Lang family, John Lang's dad, Les Lang, played saxophone, was a jazz player, and a guy that bought the radio station from Chicago who knew the jazz players from Chicago, I forget some of the names, they'd come to visit Mr. Crilly, I forget, Ed Crilly, and Les Lang, Ed Crilly, and guests from Chicago would play jazz in their living room.
Wow.
And John Lang grew, I think he was born with a guitar in his hand. I mean, there are a bunch of bands. I mean, after I left Jamestown in '75, the town was filled with several bands with dozens of great musicians.
Wow.
But the Lang family was one of them.
Did any of them go on to make any recordings or break out of the small town vibe of being the big fish in the small town to being a, full-time professional recording traveling band? Or
Not that I can think of. Let's see. I can't think of any musicians that made it big time from Jamestown other than Peggy Lee.
Peggy Lee?
Yeah, was from Jamestown. You know Peggy Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, she's from Jamestown.
Did she ever come back to Jamestown and say, hey, here's where it all started. Thank you for...
Probably not. Not that I know of. Forget where we were headed. Oh, let's see, the transition from bass to there. Sold my bass, ran around, did a bunch of things. That was back in the day when I was doing a lot of traveling, wasn't holding any jobs, was hitchhiking around the country. And wherever I landed, or somebody had a guitar, that'd be everybody go to bed or whatever, and I'd go pick up the guitar and strum it. Go over my, practice my AED chords and strum and stuff like that. Speaking of those AED chords or EAD chords, one time, a friend of mine and I were in the Grand Canyon, and we were there without a permit, and we were meeting people around the canyon, and there was a guy with a sailboat. He was an old guy. I think he was from Europe, Germany or Norway or something. He had a guitar, and we sat in his tent, and he played us some tunes. And he played a Johnny Cash tune, I Walk the Line, I think.
Nice.
And I remember watching him. I didn't touch his guitar, but I watched him. And then probably 25 or 30 years later, I was thinking, hey, that's right. There's that guy. And I remembered him playing, of course, I Walk the Line are easy chords, but it's like it was around the time that I was thinking, you know what, I think I will try to play guitar more seriously and learn some stuff besides EAD, C, G. By then I knew C and G too.
Yeah. And the other had an F R chord.
Yeah, that's right. That was, but that was one of the songs that I picked up from 20 years earlier that I remembered watching somebody play and thought, I think I can play that. And it's like, oh yeah, there it is.
So what you're saying, Steve, is, and were you guitarless when you went to Woodstock?
Yeah, probably pretty much. Although I'd stay in Minneapolis and I knew several people that had guitars laying around. And so same thing. I'd pick them up if I saw them.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
The thing is that attraction was always there. It was in you're watching Hendrix on stage, you're watching a guy in the Grand Canyon in a tent playing it, and you're always logging in those memories of when the instrument was in your vicinity and when you were able to pick it up yourself and interact with it.
Yeah, and I lived in Jamestown for a few years, and there are always people with guitars around, and I'd pick them up. I remember John Hill got a new Martin guitar, like 1972.
Whoa.
His nicest first acoustic guitar, his nicest one. And he said, "Here, play it." And so I picked it up and I did something, and I put a little ding in it. I was like, "Oops, sorry, sorry." Here.
What do you do to put a ding in a guitar? Just like picking it up? Or what the hell?
I don't know what I did. Yeah, bumped something. We were outside and I bumped something. I found something to do. But as I was picking up, I think the first guitar I bought for my own that was my guitar after the bass might have been. No, you know what? I had a house in Jamestown before '75 too. I had a cheap guitar there and a piano. Because when I didn't have a guitar, I was banging away on Mom's piano.
Sure.
And when I moved her piano out one time, and me and a friend were driving it, and in the back of his pickup, I was moving out of there. I had moved out of there, and Mom had said, "That's your here. I'll give you my piano." She wasn't playing it, and when we put it in the back of his pickup and we were driving. We just sort of turned a little corner, slowly tipped out of the back of the pickup. Bam! It's like, oh, like we were both like, oh no, eyes are big. We got out. Two of us picked up this big upright piano, threw it back in the truck, and drove. It was smashed. I told my mom about it. And she said, "What? You broke my piano?" And I was thinking, I thought you gave it to me. She needed room in her living room. It was taking up too much space. She wanted it out of there. But I remember living in that house. Not only did I have guitars around, and John L. lived there for a few months. He took over the house after I left in '75. On that piano, I remember teaching myself how to play While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And to this day, it's like, how did I do that? I mean, I can play it on the guitar easily enough, but how did I learn it on the piano? But Procol Harum was a big influencer on the piano stuff. So I was, Whiter Shade of Pale, and the second album had a bunch of dramatic piano tunes.
Oh, okay.
Well, plus John Lang showed me a boogie woogie thing that was really easy, and I still play that. There was always something: flutophone, guitar, piano, something. I was always doing something like that. Never got good. Never really took lessons. Never studied guitar. I did take lessons from JB for a few months in trade for something. I sold him something, and he taught me something. I forget what. And then it was just like hang out with other guitar players, and Tom Savary, for one, that I've mentioned to you. He and I played a lot in the 80s and 90s. I picked up a bass again later in the mid 80s to 90s. I had a really nice hollow body Guild bass.
Oh wow!
And I wish I had that one. It was probably better than the Gibson. It was a really nice one. I think how I got rid of a lot of instruments that I had accumulated over the 80s. I had a really bad electric guitar once. My first late 80s in my house. Bought my first electric guitar from some big music store around here. Yeah, little amp. I remember Mike and Susie were visiting once. They said, "Look, here's my electric guitar." And tried to play a couple stuff on it, but it wasn't very good. It wasn't a Fender. So I don't know why I picked that one up. I think it was like a heat wave back in those days, and it was the most days in the hundreds that Minneapolis had experienced.
Oh.
It was around that time. I associate that with that guitar. But then what instruments I'd accumulated, electric bass, electric guitar, amplifiers, a couple other things. Then I think I bought my first Taylor then, Taylor 510.
And
I traded in a bunch of those stuff.
Is that the Taylor you have now?
No, the Taylor kind of wore out after a while. Even though I did my best to humidify it and take good care of it, it was starting to dry out. Minneapolis is a dry area and all winter long. But 25 years later I sold it or traded it in for my current Taylor. But another time in there, I'd accumulated some instruments too, and I traded all those in to get my Fender Stratocaster, which I have now. That was 1990 or 90, it was 91 or 2, I forget, 92.
Which is the one that you kind of gravitate towards the most, and why?
I've gone back and forth. Mostly the Taylor, mostly acoustic playing. It's mostly what I play because it's there. It's easy to pick up. You don't have to roll everything out and plug in and stuff. And it's, you can take it anywhere. It's got pickups, of course, the acoustic. But me and my friends Tom, Susie and her husband Chris, we spent a few years playing out of the real book. We just exclusively played songs out of the real book. And to this day, of the maybe 4 dozen songs that I know part of the way through, there's not one song that I know that's what would you call it? Public ready, performance ready, that I can play all the way through spotless. Okay. But I know dozens and dozens of songs that I can play.
Sections.
90% of it.
Yeah.
Not keeping time or anything like that.
Sure.
And so, I mean, any one of those. But anyway, we did that a lot with the real book. And most of the songs that I know that I probably can play all the way through are jazz tunes from the real book.
Awesome.
So that was really my orientation to playing a little more consistency. Learned some scales from JB and played jazz real book and did that over time with my acoustic guitar because Susie was a fabulous mandolin player.
Oh, nice. Very good accompaniment.
And, Chris was a decent guitar player, and Tom was a pretty decent guitar player too. Back then, he was pretty decent. He's gotten much better in the 20 years since then. So that's probably how I mostly learned. And so it's like now, or in the last 10 years, 10 or 15 years, I have to go back and learn some of those songs that I was listening to in my 20s, teens and 20s.
Over the decades, Steve, when you pick concerts to go to, because I know that's one of my downfalls. Downfall, I guess I could call it a downfall, but might be a blessing, actually. I always pick the concerts where I know the guitarist and I'm going to watch the guitarist. Over the decades, did you gravitate towards, okay, I've got to go see these guys because yada yada's on guitar?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Well, like the last 20 years, for sure, the performers that I've seen the most of, Richard Thompson, whether he's solo or with a 3-piece band or a 5-piece band, he played with an accordion player and fiddler. Richard Thompson has been my go-to musician for the last 20 years, at least 20 years.
Because of his guitar.
Because of his guitar playing. He's like peerless as far as popular tunes, especially European-based popular tunes. Steering rock and roll songs, but a lot of really deep ballad, British-based ballads, about war and love and crooks. Most of them. He's a powerful singer. He's an impressive performer, and his guitar playing, it's mind-blowing. When I listen to his recorded stuff, I have to remind myself he's the only guitar player on stage. When you see him in person, it's like, how's he getting those sounds out of that? He's one of my primary guitar heroes. I haven't listened to him much lately.
Any moments from previous concerts where it's like, shit, I remember watching Pete Townsend smash his Les Paul, or I remember when,
yeah,
threw his guitar in the audience, or any of those moments where the guitar players shine in your memory from concerts past?
Yeah, so many. I'll go through a few of them. One of my favorite stories, I'm sure you've heard it a couple dozen times, seeing, I used to see Paul Revere and the Raiders a lot in Fargo. They'd come through, and they were always fun. I mean, they were good. They were tight. I had all their records. They were good. Paul Revere and the Raiders.
They lost the state fair.
Another band, one we saw at the band was Big Brother and the Holding Company without Janis Joplin, me and you and Jeff.
Oh, she was pretty good. She actually held her own.
Well, one of the biggest mind boilers was going to see. This was after a few Paul Revere and the Raider shows. Herman's Hermits, opened by Blues Magoos. Herman's Hermits was the name band, but opening were Blues Magoos, and second in line was The Who.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
Like 1966.
Oh.
I think they had I Can See for Miles out as their single. But this was their first American tour.
Yeah. Wow.
And man, the place went nuts.
Oh, man.
And of course, smashed all their instruments at the end.
Yeah.
The next time, a few months later, they came back to Fargo. They were the opener because everybody went, "Who's Herman's Hermits and Blues Magoos?" Funny. They did an opening, or they were the only act, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
And they wrecked the place, and the crowd rioted and mayhem ensued. And so Fargo banned rock music for, a brief moment.
Wow.
But after that, in Fargo, I saw, Jefferson Airplane, Eric Burdon and the Animals, and a few other, Bob Dylan a couple of times,
Sure.
like that. But then other bands, of course, Woodstock. That was the king of. That was beyond words.
Yeah.
The band, the Who. 10 years after, I missed Hendrix, I missed Santana. All those, but I saw so many great bands. The year of '69, I was in college, NDSU. Friends of mine picked me up and we went down and saw the Grateful Dead at the Labor Temple in Minneapolis. That was a total mind-blowing experience. And by the end of the year, and then just before that, that was February or March '69. 2 months before that, I saw Hendrix in Minneapolis.
I believe you did get to see Hendrix then. You missed Woodstock, but you did get to see him live.
Yeah, saw him a year before Woodstock. 10 months before Woodstock.
Oh man.
And it was kind of disappointing. He was doing his record. It was a tour. He was hitting all the bands. So this is November '68, and he was just playing the hits off his record. He played for 45 minutes.
Wow, that's a quick show.
Yeah, it was, and it's kind of like, really, that's it? That's all you got for us?
It wasn't the performance that disappointed you. It was the length of time, right?
Yeah, it's that he did the songs off his record. Are You Experienced? Hey Joe, Purple Haze.
Yeah.
I don't even think he did an encore.
Oh, son of a gun.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Guitar Garage Talk is brought to you by YourGuitarMechanic.com. Setups, repairs, restrings, and more. Whatever your guitar or bass needs, we can get it done. Offering pickup and delivery service in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area. YourGuitarMechanic.com. Now, back to the program.
Actually, one of my probably the earliest guitar hero, Lonnie Knight, a local guy here, used to tour around the Midwest and came to Jamestown a few times. Joker's Wild first, and then Flash Tuesday. Flash Tuesday was an awesome band. And he was a big Jeff Beck fan. He was an awesome guitar player. He's like 6'4", skinny as a rail, long blonde hair, high-heeled boots, bell bottoms back in those days. Three-piece band. It was the first time I saw like the big double bass setup and a drummer with biceps and just killer drummer. They were awesome. And I was trying to think before the interview. I thought, let's see, Lonnie Knight. What was his band before his Flash Tuesday? We just traveled everywhere to see him. So I thought, I wonder if he's on. I looked him up to see if I could find the name of the band. Found an interview with him on some local radio station back then. He was releasing a record. He played also years since then, because Flash Tuesday and Joker's Wild. And he always went back and forth from doing a solo acoustic thing to a rock and roll band and playing with the blues bands around town. Hoop Snakes, Bruce McCabe and Bruce and Bingham McCabe band. Or Bruce McCabe and Bingham band, and he'd sit in with those guys. By that time he had 40 years experience as a blues rock guitar player, and was a showman and really good. And so in that interview he said, "Oh yeah, well I played with the Hoop Snakes." I said, "Oh, that's one of the names of the local bands." And he said, and I played a lot with Bruce McCabe before the Johnny Lang thing happened. And it's like, oh, that's right, that was about then. So that's when Johnny Lang, the 14-year-old from Fargo, came down, and Bruce McCabe took him under his wing and introduced him to all the blues players in Minneapolis. So it was fun to hear that reference. That's the Johnny Lang that we saw in Atlanta.
We're at the Hendrix Festival in Atlanta, and Johnny Lang is one of the guys, and you're like, "Oh, that's Johnny Lang." I'm like, "Who?"
Yeah.
Well, now we know.
Yeah, that's right.
Now I know.
Yeah, I think that was his first big outing, was a big Cedar Fest in Minneapolis, outdoor, 12 stages outdoor, spread through a whole neighborhood, the West Bank neighborhood. And they had held those for several years, and they were a lot of fun. International scene. There was Shane Goya, there was salsa bands, there was all the R&B bands and funkadelic bands that Minneapolis has produced. Would break out and turn the town into a stage.
What was the name of the book you told me about the West?
Oh, West Bank Boogie.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Written by
Sid Collins.
Okay. And I saw a couple copies on Amazon and eBay. Found it on eBay.
Oh, wow, yeah. If you ever need it, I'll loan it to you if you ever want to see it. It's chock full of Minneapolis history.
I'd love to. Do you ever think about going on Google and searching some of these names and seeing if there's photos or recordings out there that someone happened to have a tape deck set up and they got some of these bands that you're talking about in Jamestown? And you think anyone was out there archiving that material?
Every now and then I check YouTube for something like that, and every now and then I'm surprised. But yeah, I'll look more for like some of the. I doubt if there's anything on the Walkers, but probably the Unbelievable Uglies, because they're still around. They were really a good show band. They were good. Back in those days, getting back to the pavilions around lakes, there's the Carrington Pavilion, Rainbow something Pavilion. There's the Spiritwood Lake Pavilion. There's the one in Detroit Lakes and all that. Back in the 60s, there were these touring bands from R&B bands, Spider and the Crabs, the Fabulous Flippers. They would come out of Lawrence, Kansas. There must have been some big production agency there sending all these great brass R&B bands sending around, touring around the Midwest. Those are the days, like back then, before that was only AM radio. So there'd be these big boomers, like the guy that broadcast from Mexico, Wolfman Jack.
Okay.
There was KOMA from Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City. Middle of the night, you could drive out in the country and tweak your antenna or something and get that one, and Bleecker Street from Little Rock, Arkansas. These were big. That's where you got your latest music. I think there's a big station out of Minneapolis too, Twin Cities, but not a big boomer that broadcast across the whole country.
Dude, what are your thoughts on guitar? I mean, do you ever explore new music, like open up YouTube and check out what's going on now with guitarists? And are there any out there that you don't have to name names, but like maybe style or anything that you're gravitating towards, or what? Maybe the question is better asked: is the role of guitar playing changing in music?
Yeah, I know there's been a slice of popular music out that doesn't catch my attention, that I'm not drawn to. I suppose it, maybe ballady, maybe a lot of different instrumentation, maybe a lot of international influences, which, by the way, I'm all in favor of. As far as the new music that's routinely broadcast, not that drawn to it.
Right.
There's exceptions. There are youngster bands, like not youngster bands. One of the I suppose newer bands from this century, the Decemberists from the West Coast, from Seattle area or Portland maybe.
Okay.
They're good. I like what they're doing. They're like acoustic instrument driven. Stand-up bass, mandolin, violin, acoustic guitar, all amplified, of course. Oh, Trampled by Turtles, yeah.
I went and listened to some of their stuff, and it kind of has that feel too, that old worldly, back to the real instruments and
right,
overproduced sound. It's good stuff.
Billy Strings, is a famous acoustic guitar player. It's really good. I've seen a few clips of him, but I'm not that familiar. There's a lot of watching Saturday Night Live when they bring on new bands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, let me tell you, the world's filled with great musicians.
Yeah.
But it's also filled with a lot of goofy ass music, if you ask me.
No,
You know, look, there's 6 chords, you know, and you use 4 of them most of the time. Put some strings on it. Put on a vocalist who's got a good voice.
Yeah.
And put them in clothes where their body's kind of sticking out of their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Have them sing, and you don't see a band. And if they got a backup band, I'm all for it. If you can see the players and they have to play together, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's kind of like piped in music and somebody just singing.
Yeah. It loses that tactile human element there. And I don't know, man. For some reason, I think a majority of the new generation, because they eat it up in droves, and the machine keeps pumping out the stuff that's getting eaten up. Those glowing musicians that do have blisters on their fingers and learn how to become one with their instrument and create stuff. It almost seems like it's disappearing.
Well, one of my newer musicians, new in the last several years, John Batiste.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's like when he performs, he blows my mind. And I'm developing this attitude that people that go to Juilliard and Berkeley and Boston, Berkeley School of Music and stuff like that, great training, you get that knowledge. The ones that drop out because they're impatient with the curriculum, the ones to look for.
Yeah. And I love everything Batiste does. You can hear his New Orleans influence in there. He always has that one foot in his traditional, background. I like that about him.
Seen that, not to get off on a single performer's direction so much, but have you seen his documentary on Netflix?
Not yet. Every time I see the trailer for it, though, I'm like, oh God, I'm going to cry. I know that's going to be a cry.
I know there are sad moments in it, but boy, when he plays,
yeah.
and like that documentary is about John Batiste as a human being, and let me tell you, I loved him for his humanity before I loved his music. Even though his playing piano for Colbert for years was just amazing. That was the main part of the show for me. It's like, yay, stay human.
I did see a documentary recently, I think it was last year, on Ron Carter on PBS.
Really? Oh, wow.
He's sitting down with Batiste in one part because Ron Carter goes to studio. Whoever asks him to play bass, and he'll show up. And there is a segment with him sitting down with John Batiste, and it's pretty cool. They just got this vocabulary, and this, Batiste is an incredible musician.
Oh man, an incredible human. And Ron Carter, he's still playing and touring?
Yes, he is. Yeah, Alicia and I told you Alicia and I saw him at the Blue Note.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
that's right.
Oh man, and it was like from me to this wall from the stage. I was just and the rest of the band, he had this lady on piano, and I've actually looked up that setup that he had a horn player, a drummer, and a lady on piano. And he has some recordings with that group, and just phenomenal. And he's one of those guys like Batiste that's able to dabble in classical and dabble in, there's of course it's jazz, and just I guess Ron Carter sometimes he's played on rap albums too, hip hop tracks, because he believes in the music, and that's where genre be damned.
Yeah, John analyzed on him once on campus in a room about this size. So everybody's knees were knocked together, and Ron Carter was there. And
when was that?
Had to been in the early to mid '80s.
Wow. Was it his own thing?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool.
I don't remember who else played with him.
Huh?
It's like all I saw was Ron Carter. All I remember is Ron Carter. pretty sure he didn't play solo, but I don't remember a piano or a horn or a drum.
If someone was, and well, you did it with me. I remember watching you playing this acoustic guitar in Jamestown at the age of 10. And I think I had that you sitting in front of John L. Moment where you're like, wow, what is he doing? There's that magic there. I don't think I could. And then you handed me the guitar, and I was like, I think that's the first time I ever experienced crying from happiness. At the age of 10, it was just like mind blowing. And if you were to, pass on, or say some kid comes up and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about picking up guitar. I see you have a guitar, and any suggestions? What would you tell them as a guitar? I mean, what would the words of wisdom be?
Well, learn the basics, play them over and over, and then just keep on playing and practice. Trade in sleep and work for holding up in your room and listen. I mean, actually, one thing that I didn't do very well is listen. Train my ear. Listen, learn songs, listen what it's doing, and connect. Play what you want to, but play a lot. Practice, and do something new every day. That's what I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Or push yourself. Learn some theory, learn some tricks, learn some shortcuts. Play what sounds fun. Play what feels good.
And that's the key. Have fun. Don't overstress yourself about it. If you see these people, like that moment when you're playing in Anchorage when you're visiting us, and I've had that moment a couple other times with other guitarists where it's like, holy shit, I'm never going to get this. You know what I mean? This guy's 5 years younger than me, and he can play this tune. And I'm like, how did you do that one? And they're like, oh, just like this. And you're like, okay, wait, hold on. Don't get discouraged. And if you can't, you're never going to be like everybody else.
Oh, that's right.
You're going to be you, and you're playing what you want to play and what's coming out of you. And I think that those are the guitarists that I'm attracted to personally, is the guitarists that divert from the norm, like Jeff Beck or Hendrix, or, the guys that take the basics and go in different directions with it. And you're like, well, okay, now that's a direction I've never heard before. That doesn't make it wrong. There is no wrong or right. It's the only thing that's right is what you're feeling when you're doing it. Playing with your feet, playing it on your lap, playing the song in a different key. Don't let that discourage you that you're not sounding like or looking like what they're doing. That would have been the advice I'd give maybe when I started taking it seriously at the age of 16, 17, 18, that's the advice I would have given me as a younger player. Don't lock down in the, geez, I can't do that, or yes, but you can do that,
Yeah, right. Yeah, you do this, and if it's fun, do a little bit more, find more fun.
Yeah.
There was I forget where I saw this, somewhere. Some musician that we probably know, and I don't remember who it was. I was talking about being at a show. He was one of the performers. There were some fans hanging out, and as another band walked on, or came out, or joined the room or something. And the guy said, "Oh man, what are they doing here?" or something like that. And the guy that he was talking to turned on him and said, "What do you mean? It's not who's good. It's music. It's all music. Don't, that's all I had to say. It's all music. Don't judge what's good and what isn't good."
I think something else that I teach, tell, and pass on the knowledge of is dive into other genres. I mean, I sat through that PBS documentary from Ken Burns on country western music.
Yeah.
And I was like, why in all those years did I shun this genre when, for one, it's so guitar related? I mean, guitar is the rock foundation of country music, right?
Yeah.
And just dabble in, and don't be afraid to sit down and listen to a classical, even if there isn't guitar in it. Listen to an Elton John piano riff or a Beethoven symphony,
don't lock yourself into like, I want to be a metal guitar player. That's what I need to listen to. And I think I see younger kids bringing guitars to me, and I'm like, have you ever heard of that? No, no. They're like, yeah, but I've heard the new Metallica, or and they know the names, and I'm looking at these kids going, God, if I could just, and I don't want to sound like the old man in the room, but it's like, take a listen to, Blues Breakers with Eric Clapton, or take a listen to the Who, My Generation, and you'll know where it was coming from when James Hetfield, Metallica, picked up a guitar, and
Yeah.
and so I think that's a piece of wisdom I pass on to a younger crowd too. Is expand your horizons.
Yeah, I had to rethink. I had to redo some of that. There was a brief time, when I was a kid, and Hendrix and the Doors and Cream were all coming out and all that. When I was like, oh, Johnny Cash, he's not cool, or Hank Williams, or like some of those others. It's like, holy smokes, Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, one of the greatest songwriters. Jeez, come on, you guys. Yeah, and I've got a bit of a bone to pick too, and I have a tough time with these algorithms and Google and Spotify and iTunes and all these other places saying, oh, we know what kind of music you like, because they, somehow they probably know what my playlist is and my whatever. We've created a playlist for you, and it's all Zeppelin, Who, Cream, Fleetwood Mac. It's like, cut it out, man. You got to jump around the world a little bit.
I think, and that's a very good point, Steve, because I think algorithms need to change at the times too. And I think an algorithm that you resonated with, and they probably try and do it, if you happen to listen to Beethoven over here and Jimi Hendrix over here, and maybe the algorithm should be pointing towards, oh, Patrick happens to be, he likes songs in D major. Have you ever tried listening to this tune in D major, or that kind of stuff?
Yeah, right.
Algorithms need to get a little more sophisticated, and then it will be less linear, like you're saying, and broaden our horizons as listeners.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, some of my lack of discipline and not practicing and not working really hard from when I was a kid and all that kind of stuff. It's like by nature, I have so many interests. I couldn't focus on playing guitar. I couldn't, I could only hear the music that I could hear that was being broadcast or what I'd see at a band, but I could never stay focused on one task for very long. It's like, okay, oh, fun. Look, I learned a new chord. Isn't that great? But it's a big world, and I'd go do something else. I'm going bike riding. Once I'm bike riding, I'm going to go swimming. I'm going to read this set of books, and I'm going to read this set of books. I'm going to see these movies. It's just I had too many, I still have too many interests to get good at any one thing. And I've always been driven around by that. And so when there's playlists, I don't want to hear, sometimes I'm in the mood to hear something old but familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly, I guess, because I don't really like some of the new music, but I need to not jump from band to band. That's kind of alike. I need to jump from genre to genre, from country to country. I just need variety. So the best playlist for me is my music collection, and I hit song, and I hit scramble, and then I get everything. I get the big bands from the 40s. I get Ella Fitzgerald. I get jazz from Brazil. I get an old rock and roll tune. I'll get somebody from the UK. I'll get some violin music. I'll get some Billie Holiday. I'll get some Muddy Waters. I'll get some,
You know what you should put in there is some Tibetan throat singing.
Oh yeah, right, exactly. No, There's this documentary I saw, or a movie I saw. I guess it was a documentary. There's a black blues player, blind, from the Bay Area. And he was listening to late night radio one time, and he played clubs in San Francisco. And he heard throat singing. He thought, what in the world is that? So he taught himself how to throat sing.
Wow.
He went to Mongolia and entered a contest.
It's a documentary.
Yeah. I don't know what the name of it is, but look up throat singing movie from the 90s or 80s, 90s.
Wow. I'm going to end every podcast with everyone I talk to, every episode, with the same question. And you probably gave this one a lot of research, I'm sure, because you said you were researching, and that would be
The impossible question.
Last but not least, Steve, what 3 guitar tunes would you put on your Desert Island Guitar mixtape?
Yeah, that's almost an impossible question. I'm going to digress just one half a conversation ago. When I was thinking of the throat singer, I got to plug another documentary from the late 90s, maybe 99, 2000, 2001, around there. Schultze Gets the Blues. It's a story. It's not a documentary. It's a story about a German or Austrian accordion player. Have I told you about that before?
Yeah, and I definitely have to look it up.
Oh man, Schultze Gets the Blues. And yet I was reminded of it because yesterday I heard a story, a short story on NPR about in Germany, there's a band that plays New Orleans music, brass band, and it's like they're just doing all the New Orleans sound. Nice. In Germany, and people walk into that bar. The bar is packed every night. They don't know what the hell that is.
But they love
it. Oh, that's like Schultze Gets the Blues. Anyway, look it up. Okay. Schultze Gets the Blues.
Okay.
It's great. It's a good story too.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. So 3 guitar tunes you put on a Desert Island mixtape. I think that leads right into the conversation that we were having about variety. And I can't be focused on, the same thing. And that's a tough question because it's like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
From all the music that I've loved over the last 75 years, 70 years plus, actually, when I was a kid on the farm, less than 5, we only had a radio. And I'd listen to early 50s songs from then, and it's all we did. We didn't have TV, we didn't have a telephone, we didn't have running water, we had, all that. So I've been listening to the radio since I was 1. There's, I did pick out 3 songs that kind of sort of represent a spectrum, I guess.
Okay.
Because, it's like, if I was on a desert island, of course I'd want some Led Zeppelin, of course I'd want some Beatles, of course I'd want some Beach Boys and some Ventures and all that kind of stuff. But songs that keep coming back. One popular rock and roll tune that I picked is Little Wing, Hendrix. That's a simple tune. It's over way too soon, but it's always been beautiful, and I've always loved that whole album. That Hendrix second album since '69. I've loved it. But Little Wing is always stuck in my head.
That's a great choice, man.
And I never get tired of it. I only hear it every few years, and it's like, wow.
And it's pure. You can almost picture him sitting in his apartment with a tape deck and his Strat and just noodling around. And, oh man, I got to press record on this because it's quintessential Hendrix, that tune.
Yeah, think about the simple chords that it is.
Yeah.
E, C, D, G, A, F.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
That, and how does he play that?
Yeah. Only Hendrix.
That's one of those. Yeah, it's like in high school when I heard the first Hendrix album. It's like I don't even know what that is.
It makes me think of my first experience. Excuse the pun. Dad and I were driving to, I think it was the post office in Anchorage. Hendrix Wind Cries Mary came on. And we're in the parking lot and he's getting ready to go inside. I remember it was in the middle of winter. And I'm like, wow, who's that? I asked Dad, I said, who's that? oh, that's Jimi Hendrix. I was like, okay, now I got to log in this, and of course I wasn't really paying attention to the song anymore because my brain was on fire with the possibilities of, whoa, is this where music, because for me at that age, it was like whatever came on the radio, but Hendrix, it was like, it ripped open a whole new tear in my psyche that you could just go through and explore. I mean, even the lyrics, and Little Wing too. I mean, it's poetry. I mean, it's so well written, and a lot of musicians nowadays can't even say that. No one wrote that for Hendrix. He wrote that himself. So not only a prolific poet, but married together, just Little Wing, Wind Cries Mary, phenomenal.
Yeah, no kidding. It reminds me like when your dad and I, my brother Mike and our dad would go hunting. We'd have the radio on AM, FM radio, coming home, we're tired, all that. Maybe it was only one time, but it seems like it's one of those moments that kind of paints a whole sequence.
Sure.
One of Dylan's early songs on his first album, whatever it was, or maybe this wasn't even on one of his albums. My attention was just pasted to the radio, just listening to the words. When you stand in the vacuum of your eyes and says, "Hey, do you want to make a deal?" It's like, God, I was like 13 years old or something, and he's only like 9 years older than me, so he's like 20. I love those lyrics.
And then, of course, that ties into Hendrix as well, because the only Like a Rolling Stone I knew was Jimmy at the Monterey Pop Festival, right?
Yeah.
And then to know that Dylan was a huge influence on Jimmy and like All Along the Watchtower, and it's holy crap. Suddenly I'm going backwards and finding Dylan recordings, and that's cool that Hendrix could carry the torch like that and say, look, you guys, if you love me doing this, go back and grab Dylan. You know what I mean?
And Dylan said after he heard Hendrix's version, he always plays it that way. Okay, so 3 guitar tunes. Another one is, I hope you know this one, Paco de Lucia, Entre de Aguas. It's I never get tired of it. I only hear it every few years, but it's like, oh man, like it's the one where I stop with what I'm doing and turn when I'm doing that. And another one, I'm sure you've never heard of this one. Cuarto Oriente is the artist. He's Cuban at the Cuarto Oriente. Mueva la, I can't read my own handwriting, let alone Spanish. Mueva la cintura mulata. Cuarteto Oriente. Mueva la cintura mulata. It's beautiful. It's another one that just stops me in my tracks.
And then when I'm thinking about, what you said about the desert island, it's like, yeah, okay, you've got the Zeppelin and you've got the, all the bands that you would, definitely put on that list. I think they're so ingrained in my psyche, classic rock in general, that I could probably do Don't Stop Believing by Journey and walk around the island and sing it note for note from the beginning to end. It's so why would you want it on that mixtape when it's already locked into your genetic, musical material?
Yeah.
It's already running in your mixtape in your brain. You don't need it.
And that's one of the things about music too, and why stations like that only play old big rock and roll hits, like big rock stations, whatever they are. And it doesn't take long to get sick of them. But truth of the matter is, I'm emotionally attached to my youth, or that's where I come from. Yeah. And all that stuff, all that early years stuff. I mean, stuff like from the farm when I was less than 5, and the music I listened to in high school and the few years after that. That's like part of the building blocks of who I am. I think you just referenced that. And of course, I'm emotionally attached to it, so I think it's great music. I can still hear. I still look for or I'm still exposed to or love world music from all around the world. Not all of it, but a lot of it. I mean, it's, the songs that reach me that aren't connected to my youth or my development. I hear something in them. And so of course I'm going to be more attached to the old, they're going to catch there's going to be a memory attached to it. There's going to be a scene or a period of my life. And kids these days that are listening to whatever's out there today, that kind of goes past me. A lot of it does. Yeah. When they're my age, they're going to go back to, 2010, 2015,
Right.
20, whatever.
Right. It's interesting, Steve, and I'm thinking about this. Is guitar for us as noodlers, like you called it at the beginning, players, in any instrument, is that us attempting to connect and hold on to a continuing thread, maybe even thanking the musical gods for what they've given us over the decades, and becoming an obvious fiber of our being? I think connecting with guitar, for me personally, is kind of a thank you, bowing at the altar of, because even though we're playing on deaf ears except our own, right? If you're not recording your own music, you're still giving it to the universe up there, and the energy that is music that we've tapped into so many times, and it might be a kind of a connection, when you hear about Bach and writing, his concertos, there's a certain amount of connection with God. They wrote it to connect with the spirit, the divine. And to me, I think that might be what guitar is. It's our holy grail, our Ark of the Covenant, whatever you want to call it. It's our musical divining staff that allows us to reach out into that energy.
Yeah, 6 strings that are reverberating and part of the vibration of our development.
Absolutely.
And it'd be like immigrating to another country and then hearing music from your tribe or village or community that you left so long ago. And human history, I don't think there's been a moment in human history that music hasn't been part of.
Right.
The community group was.
Yeah.
And that connects the tribe, that connects whatever.
Well, Steve, I honestly am so deeply thankful for everything you've given me musically, and starting, giving me that divining rod, that tool that I could use to tap into the energy that I was just exploring as a kid. And suddenly it was like, oh, I can make this happen, and I do appreciate that. And I really appreciate you joining me in this conversation. Thank you very much.
Happy to, Patrick. Thanks. And who knew when I gave you that guitar that I was going to, that it was that important to you? I might have been trying to get rid of some of the stuff I had because I was probably moving to Arizona. It's like, yeah, I don't need this. Take it. Thank you.
And when I got it, I remember a lot of times just holding on to it and just like holding it, and not even playing it, just looking at the body and trying to figure out the mechanics of building one of these. And it was definitely an eye opener for me, a soul opener. And I have to say that you're probably, because of that, you're going to be one of the most, if not the most important guest I'll ever have.
Well, thank you. I will say, about that connection with music and holding the guitar and that. It's part of our cultural thing, growing up with a guitar-driven culture. Even though I'm not a professional musician and I don't know everything about how to create music and all that, there's still nothing there's nothing like picking up a guitar, feeling the strings, the fretboard. The Fender guitar that I have, when I picked it up and I felt it, that I could just fit like a well-made shoe or something. It's like, wow, I got to have this. It's kind of expensive back in 1990. but just the feel of steel on fretboard and on the frets. And, sometimes like with my arthritis, I can't play very long, but I have to do it. Just pick it up and just do a lick or do a scale or strum a couple of chords just for old time's sake. And it just feels so good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
On stage though, I'm terrible. Terrible in public.
Well, Steve, again, thank you, man. I really greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon.
Patrick, thanks so much
Yeah.
for your attention and for inviting me. And it's always great talking with you.